Hello, this is Joseph Ald for Project 9, quadcopter downloading IMU data from RPi to host via Bluetooth. The stated requirement was to use the IMU connected to the Arduino mounted on the quadcopter, and while flying, capture roll, pitch, and yaw, send it over serial over USB to the Raspberry Pi, and then send via Bluetooth from the Raspberry Pi to your host, and then display it on my host. Another stated requirement was on the Arduino to use the free RTOS for tasks in this project to learn about and get experience with an RTOS. The list of materials were the same as all the previous projects, with the exception of I had to use an external Bluetooth dongle, which I explain more later, but I used the HC-TAC06 4-pin wireless Bluetooth serial RF transceiver. Most of this was the same as last week's module downloading IMU data over Wi-Fi. The only difference was I had to enable serial port via Raspberry Pi config so I could talk to the serial port over Bluetooth. Then I had to connect the HC-TAC06 to the Pi as shown below. Then I installed PuTTY on my Windows computer and connected the Pi to my Windows computer via a COM port. So instead of connecting it like a normal Bluetooth device, you have to go to Devices and Printers, right-click on the host name, add Bluetooth device, and then from there you can add it as a COM port. And then the PuTTY configuration was, in my specific instance, was COM8, and then the Bluetooth receiver has a baud of 9600, and I demo that later. So here's a diagram of the HC-TAC06 connected to my Raspberry Pi. Here is a picture of my drone. So I have the breadboard and the Arduino and the IMU up here. And then I have some long DuPont cables connected to a UART receiver on my Raspberry Pi, which is down here. And the reason I couldn't plug the Arduino directly into the Raspberry Pi, I explained it in a later video, but it was, I don't know if my battery was bad or what was going on, but basically my Raspberry Pi was getting message warnings that it was under voltage when I had the Arduino directly connected. So I have the Arduino plugged into the buck converter here, which is under the GPS puck, and then I have the Raspberry Pi plugged into a different power source. Here's a top view of the breadboard, the Arduino, and the IMU. Here's a better shot of the Raspberry Pi. So these 4 pins are going to the Bluetooth transceiver, which I showed better, but it's stuck in there. And then here is a USB to UART adapter, and I only needed the receive and transmit pins from the Arduino because power and ground were already given to it. And then here's the HC-TAC06 Bluetooth module. Here's, same as last week, yaw, pitch, and roll, and then the calibration data. The code was exactly the same as last week, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. No changes were needed. And up next will be my demonstration videos. Thank you. This project by far gave me the most trouble, and I've spent the most hours on this project out of any of them. So I will kind of walk you through the steps I did and explain my thought process. So first, I tried to use the native Bluetooth chip on the Raspberry Pi, and I enabled serial terminal serial command line to the Raspberry Pi config. I was able to connect via Bluetooth my Windows laptop to the Raspberry Pi, and I was able to open the comms port, but as soon as I typed in any command, the connection would drop. Tried troubleshooting several things with that. Nothing seemed to work. Also tried it on my Mac. On my Mac, as soon as the Bluetooth connected, it would immediately disconnect. So I ended up restoring the Raspberry Pi completely, starting from scratch. Still wouldn't work. So then I ordered this device, the HC-06 Bluetooth UART module, and I have it connected to the UART pins on the Raspberry Pi, and had the Arduino plugged in via USB directly to the Raspberry Pi, and everything powered through the buck converter. and got it to work once, but most of the time the Bluetooth, my putty connection was just complete trash. It was gargled and I couldn't read any of it. So then I opened D-Message and saw that it said under voltage. So I figured I had a power issue. So then I troubleshot several things and was never able to get it to. I ended up unplugging all the other peripherals from the Raspberry Pi. Still wasn't able to get it to work. So I ended up, currently I have the Arduino plugged directly into the buck converter. Then I have the Raspberry Pi hardwired into a wall wart. And then I'm using this USB to UART adapter to communicate via UART from the Raspberry Pi. So I'm going to show this working first in case I can't get it to work again, because I have had many issues with this. For some reason it doesn't print past this line, but you can see if I move this, you can see the yaw pitch and roll changing. Now I'm going to kind of work backwards, and hopefully I'll be able to show you all the steps I did. I just wanted to show that first in case it didn't work for some reason. So we're going to quit. And yes. All right. So you can see I have a shell. I can LS and whatnot. So now I'm going to try closing it and opening the port again and hoping that it works. So yes. So go to putty. First, let me show you this. You can see that I have COM8 outgoing is the HC Tech 06 Dev B, and I will disconnect Wi-Fi. So no Wi-Fi. So let's come and load these settings. COM8 9600 is the baud. Open. Sometimes it takes a second. And there, we have a shell, so I can type in ls, and there we are. And then I can do ls USB, and you can see I have this UART bridge, and that's the only thing connected via USB. And I can do minicom tac d /dev tty USB 0, and the baud is 9600. Okay, and there you can see I have DL pitch and roll, and the system is calibrated. And again, I can move it. And I'm going to try to wire it in a way where I can still fly it. I only have one buck converter, and I obviously cannot power both the Bluetooth module, the Arduino, via the Raspberry Pi. So I'm not sure how I'm going to show an in-flight demo of this, but I'll spend a little more time trying to figure it out and see if I can get something working. So I'll be back with more.